The return. The artificial sun of Colony Prime cast harsh shadows across Commander Ilara Voss's face as she stood at the viewport of the flagship Harbinger. Behind her, officers moved efficiently across the bridge, their voices hushed as they prepared for humanity's greatest mission in 30 millennia. "Approaching Sol system, Commander," announced Lieutenant Chen, his fingers dancing across the navigation console. "Estimated arrival at Earth orbit in 37 minutes. Ilara nodded, her silver-flecked eyes never leaving the growing blue dot on the display. Earth, the homeworld. The birthplace that humanity had been forced to abandon when the Great Collapse ravaged the planet beyond habitability. "Status of the fleet?" she asked, her voice carrying the weight of command that had been bred into her bloodline for generations. "All 17 carriers and their escorts report battle-ready," replied Major Kane, her second in command. The colonization vessels maintain position in the rear formation. Dreadnoughts Retribution and Providence have moved to flanking positions as ordered. Ilara allowed herself a small smile. After centuries of planning, after generations of technological advancement and military preparation, the children of Earth were finally returning home. The mission parameters were clear: reclaim the planet that was humanity's birthright, whatever the cost. "Commander," Chen's voice broke through her thoughts, a note of confusion evident. "I'm detecting anomalous energy signatures from the surface." Ilara's brow furrowed. "Explain." "They're structured, Commander, not natural radiation patterns. They suggest technological activity." A heavy silence fell across the bridge. According to all historical records, Earth had been left uninhabitable after the Great Collapse. Toxic atmosphere, radiation-soaked continents, acidified oceans. Any surviving humans have been evacuated on the Exodus fleet. Nothing should have survived, let alone develop technology. "Could it be automated systems from before the Exodus?" suggested Kane, though the doubt in his voice was evident. "After 30,000 years," Ilara shook her head. "Impossible. Prepare a reconnaissance team. I want boots on the ground within the hour after we achieve orbit." As the Harbinger drew closer to Earth, more anomalies appeared on their scans. The atmosphere was clean, breathable, even. Vast forests covered lands that historical records showed as barren wastelands. Oceans teemed with life where there should have been only chemical sludge. "It's beautiful," whispered Chen, staring at the high-definition visual feed. "The Earth healed itself. Or something healed it," Ilara replied, her tactical mind racing ahead. "Launch the recon drones. I want a full planetary scan before the ground team deploys." The drones streaked toward Earth's surface, transmitting data back to the Harbinger in real time. Images appeared on the main display: rolling green forests, crystal-clear lakes, snow-capped mountains, a paradise reborn from the ashes of human civilization. And then something else. Structures unlike anything in human architectural records. Massive towers that seemed to grow organically from the land, glittering cities nestled within forest canopies, strange vessels moving through the air with propulsion systems unknown to human science. "By the Founders," breathed Kane. "Something else evolved while we were gone." Ilara's hand moved to the ceremonial blade at her hip, a tradition carried by expedition commanders since the first colony ships launched after the Exodus, or someone else found our home. The recon team launched in a sleek dropship, equipped with the most advanced stealth technology the colonies had developed. Captain Maddox Rhodes led the 12-person squad, each soldier armed with weapons capable of leveling small mountains. "Remember," Ilara's voice came through their comm systems as they pierced Earth's atmosphere. "This is an intelligence-gathering mission. Observe, record, and return. Engage only if necessary for extraction." "Understood, Commander," replied Maddox, his heart pounding as he watched Earth's surface rush up to meet them. Like all humans born in the colonies, he had grown up with stories of the homeworld, the paradise lost to human greed and short-sightedness. Now, as they descended toward a landing zone, In what ancient maps identified as the North American continent, he was about to become one of the first humans to set foot on Earth in 30 millennia. The dropship landed silently in a small clearing surrounded by towering trees. The team deployed with practiced precision, securing a perimeter as environmental sensors analyzed the air, soil, and surrounding plant life. "Atmosphere is clean, Captain," reported Lieutenant Vega, surprise evident in her voice. "No toxins, no radiation. It's actually fresher than Colony Prime's air." Maddox nodded, scanning the forest around them. The trees stretched hundreds of meters into the sky, their massive trunks wider than the dropship itself. Sunlight filtered through emerald canopies, dappling the mossy forest floor with gold. Somewhere nearby, water gurgled over stones. "Movement," hissed Corporal Jax, training his rifle on a dense patch of undergrowth. 2 o'clock, 80 meters. The team froze, weapons raised as the bushes parted to reveal a deer. No, Maddox realized, not quite. The creature resembled earth deer from historical records, but its antlers glowed with a soft blue light, and iridescent patterns shifted across its hide as it moved. The creature regarded them with intelligent eyes for a long moment before turning and bounding away deeper into the forest. "Sir," Vega whispered, consulting her scanner, that animal had traces of crystalline structures integrated with its biological systems. Before Maddox could respond, a distant rumble shook the ground beneath their feet. The team braced as the sound grew closer, rhythmic thuds like massive footfalls. "Defensive positions," Maddox ordered, signaling the team to take cover among the trees. "Stealth protocols active." They didn't have to wait long. Through the forest came a procession unlike anything human eyes had witnessed before. Towering beings, easily 4 meters tall, with bodies that seemed partly flesh, partly plant, partly crystalline technology. They walked upright on 2 legs, but their skin rippled with colors that blended perfectly with the forest around them. Where human faces would have eyes, they had glowing orbs of pulsing energy. Some carried staffs that hummed with power. Others bore no visible weapons but emanated an aura of lethal capability. "What the hell are they?" whispered Jax. Maddox didn't answer, transfixed by the beings. Behind the enormous creatures walked smaller figures, closer to human size, but clearly of the same species. And behind them, "Captain," Vega's voice cracked. "Those are humans." She was right. Following the procession were unmistakably human figures, though their clothing was strange, woven from plants and adorned with the same crystalline technology, the larger beings incorporated into their bodies. These humans moved freely, without restraints, talking among themselves, and with the larger beings. "The Harbinger needs to see this," Maddox whispered, ensuring his helmet camera was recording everything. Then disaster struck. One of the smaller crystalline beings stopped suddenly, its head swiveling toward the hidden reconnaissance team. It made a sound, a high musical tone, and instantly the entire procession halted. "They've spotted us," Maddox realized. "Maintain position." The largest of the beings stepped forward, its glowing eyes scanning the forest. When it spoke, the sound reverberated through the trees and inside the team's heads simultaneously. "We know you are there, Skyfallen. Show yourselves." Maddox hesitated. This wasn't in the mission parameters, but facing detection and possibly 12 dead soldiers, he made a command decision. "Cover me," he murmured to the team, then stepped slowly from behind the massive tree trunk, hands visible, weapon lowered but ready. "I am Captain Maddox Rhodes of the Human Expedition Fleet," he announced, voice steady despite the thundering of his heart. "We come from the colonies established after the Great Exodus from Earth." The being regarded him silently for a long moment. Then, to Maddox's shock, one of the humans stepped forward, a woman with dark skin and intricate tattoos covering half her face. "We know who you are," she said in perfect, unaccented English. "The question is, why have you returned? Earth is no longer yours to claim." On the Harbinger, Ilara watched the transmission with growing concern. The recon team had discovered not only that Earth had healed, but that it was now home to an entirely new species, and to humans who had somehow survived or returned before them. Analysis of the biocrystalline entities, she demanded. Nothing like them in any colonial database, replied Science Officer Yun. The crystalline components appear to be a form of organic technology that integrates with biological systems. The energy readings suggest they're capable of manipulating electromagnetic fields at a cellular level. And the humans with them. Genetic analysis from visual data suggests baseline humanity, but with significant adaptations to Earth's new environment. The tattoos contain trace elements of the same crystalline structure. Ilara's mind raced. The mission had just become infinitely more complex. The planned colonization of Earth, humanity reclaiming its birthright, now faced an unexpected obstacle. Earth was already inhabited, not just by a new species, but by humans who had apparently formed some kind of society with these crystalline beings. "Orders, Commander," asked Kane. Ilara straightened her shoulders. "Prepare the diplomatic corps and move the fleet to combat readiness. Let's hope we can resolve this peacefully, but I will not abandon our mission." Her eyes hardened as she watched the alien beings on the screen. Earth belongs to humanity. All of humanity. On the surface, Captain Maddox found himself inside a structure unlike any building he had ever seen. The walls appeared to be living wood interlaced with crystalline filaments that pulsed with soft light. He sat across from the tattooed woman who had addressed him in the forest. Only Lieutenant Vega accompanied him. The rest of the team remained with the dropship under heavy guard by the crystal beings. "My name is Lyra," the woman said. "I am an elder of the human enclaves of Earth." "How?" Maddox couldn't help asking. "How are there humans on Earth?" "All records indicate the planet was evacuated during the Great Exodus." Lyra smiled, though her eyes remained wary. "Not all chose to leave. Some believed abandoning our home was the final betrayal. They chose to stay and face whatever came next. But the atmosphere was toxic, the radiation levels lethal." "Yes," Lyra nodded. "Many died in the first generations, but some adapted with help." "From them?" Vega asked, gesturing to a crystal being standing silently by the door. "The Terrashippers came later," Lyra explained. "When Earth began to heal itself, they were born from it. A new species created by the planet itself, combining elements of the old world with something entirely new." Maddox struggled to comprehend what he was hearing. "You're saying Earth created a new species?" "Earth had 30,000 years to recover from what humanity did to it," Lyra said, her voice hardening. "The Terrashippers are its immune system, in a way. They healed the land, purified the waters, restored the balance. And they found us, the descendants of those who stayed, barely surviving in deep underground bunkers. Instead of eliminating us as the species that had nearly killed the planet, they helped us adapt, taught us to live in harmony with the new Earth." Vega leaned forward. "And now 17 colonial warships have arrived, claiming Earth as humanity's birthright." Lyra's expression darkened. "Yes, we've been expecting you. The Terrashippers sensed your approach long before you entered the solar system. What happens now?" Maddox asked. "That depends on your leaders," Lyra replied. "If they come in peace, seeking to understand the new Earth, perhaps accommodation can be reached. But if they come to conquer, to impose the old ways that destroyed the planet once before," she left the threat unspoken. Maddox thought of the massive fleet hanging in orbit, of Commander Voss's determination to reclaim humanity's homeworld. "I need to speak with my commander," he said. Lyra nodded. "The Terrashippers will allow your communication. But know this, Captain. Earth has defenders now, and we will not surrender our home without a fight." The Reckoning. Ilara Voss stood at the head of the Harbinger's conference table, surrounded by her senior officers and the recently returned Captain Maddox. The images captured by the reconnaissance team played in a holographic display above the table. Vast forests, crystal cities, the beings called terrashippers, and most disturbing of all, humans who had somehow survived on Earth and now stood with these alien entities. So these terrashippers, Ilara said, testing the unfamiliar word, claimed to have been created by Earth itself, some kind of planetary defense mechanism. That's what the human woman, Lyra, told us, Maddox confirmed. And Commander, their technology is unlike anything we've developed in the colonies. The integration of biological and crystalline systems, their ability to manipulate electromagnetic fields. The implication being that we shouldn't engage them militarily. Major Kane finished, his tone making clear his skepticism. Ilara studied the images again. And these humans, the ones who stayed behind, they'd live in harmony with these beings. They appear to. Maddox nodded. More than that, they've adapted physically. The tattoos they wear contain trace elements of the same crystalline structures that comprise the terrashippers. It allows them to communicate telepathically, among other abilities Lyra hinted at but didn't elaborate on. Science Officer Yuan cleared her throat. Commander, if I may, the data suggests these terrashippers have essentially terraformed Earth back to habitability, but with significant changes to its ecosystem. The planet is now a balanced biosphere unlike anything in our records. It's remarkable. Ilara's face remained impassive, but her mind raced. 30,000 years of colonial doctrine had prepared humanity for reclaiming a dead or dying Earth, not a thriving world already inhabited by both a new species and transformed humans. They've invited a delegation to meet with their council, Maddox added, to discuss our intentions. A trap, obviously, scoffed Kane. I don't believe so, sir, Maddox countered. They could have eliminated my team easily if they wanted to. Instead, they returned us with an invitation. Ilara made her decision. Prepare a diplomatic team. I will lead it personally. Kane stiffened. Commander, protocol dictates. I'm aware of protocol, Major, Ilara cut him off. But this situation is unprecedented. The mission parameters have changed. Have they? Kane challenged. Our mandate is clear. Reclaim Earth for humanity. For all humanity, Ilara corrected him, including, it seems, those who remained. Hours later, a delegation from the Harbinger descended toward a location the terrashippers had designated for the meeting. An immense structure that appeared to be a living tree larger than any colonial city, its trunk kilometers wide, branches reaching into the clouds. Crystal spires grew from its massive limbs, catching sunlight and sending rainbow refractions across the landscape. The World Tree, Lyra had called it, the heart of the terrashippers' consciousness and the seat of Earth's new governing council. As their shuttle approached, Ilara marveled despite herself. The colonists had built impressive structures across the stars, massive space stations, planet-spanning cities, but nothing with the organic grace and power of this living monument. The shuttle landed on a broad platform extending from the tree's trunk, where a welcome party waited. Several terrashippers of varying sizes and colors, and a group of tattooed humans led by Lyra. Ilara stepped out first, flanked by Maddox, Science Officer Yuan, and 2 security personnel. She wore her formal commander's uniform, the golden insignia of the colonial fleet gleaming on her chest, her ceremonial blade at her hip. Commander Voss, Lyra greeted her with a slight bow. Welcome to the World Tree. Ilara returned the gesture. Thank you for receiving us. The tallest terrashipper stepped forward, its crystalline body shifting colors in the sunlight. When it spoke, the words formed directly in their minds. We have much to discuss, Sky Children. The path forward requires understanding from all sides. They were led through corridors of living wood interlaced with crystal, the walls themselves seeming to breathe and pulse with energy. Ilara noticed how the humans and terrashippers moved among each other with easy familiarity, not masters and servants, but partners. The council chamber was a vast space inside the tree's heart, illuminated by soft bioluminescence. Representatives from what appeared to be different human enclaves sat alongside terrashapers of various forms. At the center stood a crystalline structure that Ilara realized was a three-dimensional map of Earth, showing the distribution of terrashaper cities, human enclaves, and rewilded areas that covered most of the planet. "Before we begin," Lyra said, gesturing to the map, "you should understand what Earth has become." Over the next hour, Ilara and her team learned the history of post-Exodus Earth. After humanity's departure, the planet had indeed become uninhabitable for centuries. The small population of humans who had chosen to remain retreated to deep underground bunkers, their numbers dwindling with each generation as radiation sickness and resource scarcity took their toll. Then, approximately 5,000 years after the Exodus, something remarkable happened. Earth's own biosphere, driven by evolutionary pressure, began to produce new organisms capable of accelerating the planet's healing. These primitive versions of what would become the terrashapers started as microscopic crystalline structures that could absorb radiation and convert it to usable energy. Over millennia, these organisms evolved, grew, and developed consciousness. They reshaped devastated ecosystems, neutralized toxins, and eventually discovered the remnants of humanity hiding beneath the surface. "They could have exterminated us," Lyra explained. "Instead, they offered coexistence. They helped us adapt to the new Earth, and we helped them understand the history they had emerged from. We are Earth's answer to humanity's absence," the lead terrashaper communicated. "Born from the void you left behind, neither fully of the old world nor separate from it." "And now we've returned," Ilara said quietly. "Yes." Lyra's expression hardened. "With warships and soldiers, claiming ownership of a world you abandoned." Ilara felt the weight of 30,000 years of human history pressing down on her shoulders. The colonies had maintained their claim to Earth across the millennia, building their entire civilization around the promise of eventual return. Generations had lived and died in the cold of space, surviving on the dream of reclaiming their birthright. "Our ancestors didn't abandon Earth by choice," she argued. "They left to ensure humanity's survival. They always intended to return when the planet healed. And in their absence, Earth healed itself in ways they never imagined," Lyra countered. "Created new life, new balance. What right do you have to disrupt that?" Before Ilara could answer, an alert chimed on Captain Maddox's communicator. His face paled as he read the message. "Commander," he said urgently, "the Retribution has moved from its assigned position. Major Kane has deployed ground forces to secure a landing zone." Ilara felt ice in her veins. "Without authorization. He's invoking Colonial Security Protocol 7 Alpha, claiming the diplomatic mission has been compromised and immediate military action is required to secure human interests." The council chamber erupted in alarmed voices, both spoken and telepathic. The terrashapers' crystalline bodies flashed with angry colors, and the human representatives reached for weapons concealed in their clothing. "Stop this," Ilara commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Let me contact my fleet." But it was too late. On the crystal map, red points of light appeared. Drop ships descending from the Retribution, carrying colonial marines toward what the map identified as a major terrashipper node. "Your kind brings war again," the lead terrashaper's mental voice thundered. Around the chamber, the crystals began to pulse with energy. "Not war," Ilara insisted, though dread filled her heart. "O rogue commander, give me a chance to stop this." Lyra and the lead terrashaper exchanged a look, communicating silently through their crystalline connection. Finally, Lyra nodded. "You have 1 hour, Commander Voss. After that, Earth will defend itself." The next 60 minutes passed in a blur of desperate communication. From a secure room in the World Tree, Ilara contacted the fleet, relieved to find that only the Retribution had broken formation. Most captains remained loyal to her command. "Isolate the Retribution," she ordered. Disable its engines if necessary, but no weapons fire. And recall those dropships immediately. But Major Kane had planned well. He had positioned the Retribution on the far side of Earth from the main fleet, minimizing response time. And the dropships were already deploying troops when Ilara's recall order came through. Why? She demanded when she finally established communication with Kane himself. Why break the chain of command like this? Kane's face on the screen was set in grim lines. You were compromised, Commander. Talking peace with aliens while human destiny hangs in the balance. Earth belongs to humanity. All of humanity, including the billions who died waiting to return home in the colonies. And the humans already living here. The new species that Earth itself created. Regrettable casualties in humanity's triumphant return, Kane said coldly. History will understand the necessity. The communication cut off as the first explosions rocked the Terrashipper node. On the crystal map, Ilara watched in horror as colonial forces deployed heavy weapons against Terrashipper defenders. Your hour is running out, Lyra said quietly from the doorway. And my people are dying. Ilara made her decision. Get me to the battle zone, she demanded. Let me stop this personally. Minutes later, a Terrashipper transport vessel, a living ship that seemed to swim through the air rather than fly, carried Ilara, Maddox, and a small team toward the conflict zone. Below them, the landscape blurred, the ship moving faster than any colonial craft could match. They arrived to find chaos. Colonial Marines had secured a perimeter around the Terrashipper node, a crystalline structure rising from the forest floor, and were fighting off defenders. The air crackled with energy weapons fire, and the strange, electromagnetic pulses the Terrashippers used to defend themselves. The transport landed just outside the conflict zone, and Ilara stepped out, her commander's uniform making her instantly recognizable to the colonial forces. Stand down, she bellowed through the external speakers of her environmental suit. By order of Fleet Commander Voss, cease fire immediately. The Marines hesitated, confused by her appearance. In that moment of uncertainty, Ilara strode forward, directly into the no-man's land between the two forces. Major Kane, she called out, knowing he would be monitoring. Face me, if you have any honor left. Kane emerged from behind the colonial barricade, his combat armor marking him as the field commander. You're relieving yourself of duty, Commander, by siding with these aliens against your own people. I am siding with humanity's future, Ilara countered. Look around you, Major. Earth has healed. It's alive again. But not for us. Not exclusively. We can't claim ownership of a world that has moved beyond us. 30,000 years of colonial history says otherwise, Kane snarled. Generations lived and died clinging to the promise that one day we would return home. And we have returned, Ilara said, her voice softening. But home has changed. We must change with it. Behind her, the Terrashippers had ceased their attacks, watching the human confrontation with their glowing eyes. Lyra and several other tattooed humans stood among them, their faces grim. What are you proposing? Kane demanded, though Ilara could see uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Partnership, she said simply. Not conquest. The colonies need Earth, its resources, its open skies. But Earth doesn't need to be possessed to be shared. The Terrashippers and the human enclaves have offered us a place here, not as conquerors, but as returning children of Earth, ready to learn the new ways of our old home. And if we refuse? The lead Terrashipper stepped forward, its crystalline body towering over both humans. Its mental voice projected so all could hear. Then you will face the full defense of a living world. You have weapons that can destroy cities. We are the cities, the forests, the mountains themselves. Earth has had 30,000 years to prepare for your return, Sky Children. Do not test its patience. A tense silence fell over the battlefield. Colonial Marines shifted nervously, their weapons suddenly seeming inadequate against the primal force confronting them. Ilara met Kane's gaze steadily. Major, we left Earth because we had destroyed it. If we return with the same mindset, we deserve whatever fate awaits us. She unclipped her ceremonial blade, the symbol of colonial authority, and thrust it into the ground between them. I choose adaptation over extinction. What about you? The standoff stretched for what felt like eternity. Then, slowly, Kane gave the signal for his troops to lower their weapons. The Colonial Council will want guarantees, he said stiffly. Territories, resources, rights for returning humans. All negotiable. Lyra stepped forward. But first, peace. As the colonial marines withdrew from their positions, Ilara felt an enormous weight lift from her shoulders. The path ahead would not be easy, convincing the colonies to abandon 30 millennia of doctrine, integrating colonial humans with Earth humans and Terrashipers, learning to live with rather than rule over a changed Earth. But as the sun set over the battlefield, casting golden light through the crystal spires of the Terrashipper node, Ilara saw not the end of humanity's dream but its evolution. Earth had not waited for humanity's return. It had moved forward, created new life, new balance. Now humanity had a choice: join that new balance or remain forever exiled from the home they had once destroyed. Earth is alive, Ilara whispered, watching colonial and Terrashipper forces cautiously mingling as the temporary truce took hold. And now finally, so are we. In the twilight, the world tree glowed on the distant horizon, its crystalline branches reaching toward the stars. Not unlike the colonial ships still orbiting above, their inhabitants poised on the threshold of a homecoming none of them had imagined. After 30,000 years, humanity had returned to Earth, not as conquerors, but as one strand in a tapestry far more complex and beautiful than their ancestors could have dreamed. The true reckoning was not with Earth's new guardians, but with humanity's own past, and the future they would now build together.